On today's show, the LA Clippers fail to win again at Intuit, are now 0-4 at home, and what went so wrong in this game that represented a carbon copy of the way we've lost the last couple of games? Why is there a pattern developing? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and in my 20th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where a vlog of my experience at the OKC game will be. I was in the wall. I talked to fans after the game, even asked them about how they feel about the success of Oklahoma City, given that we gave them so much of their success with this trade. And, of course, Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Make sure you comment and let me know what you think of this loss and the patterns that have been developing and what I'm about to talk about in this episode that is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Just head over to FanDuel.com to bet on any sport. But we're going to talk about the main reasons that I felt we lost the game, starting with the fourth quarter collapse where it all went wrong yet again. Zubats, who I feel as though had a stinker, and then the changes that we might need to make going forward. So let's begin with the fourth quarter. And the reason I'm beginning with the end of the game is because yet again, through 3 quarters, we were right there. We're only down by 2 points heading into the fourth. 3 points, 81-78. Heading into the fourth against the best team in the Western Conference. And not just the best team in the Western Conference based on record, because they were 5-0 heading into the game, but they were predicted by most, including myself, to be the #1 seed yet again in the regular season this year, and then probably win the West this year. Are they ready to make that jump from the second round exit to the championship? I do not know. We'll see. But point being, they're really, really good, right? The best team we've played so far this season. And again, we're holding our own for 3 quarters. And I'm going into that fourth quarter thinking, wow, it's going to be another close game. We just cannot stop being in close games. And I explained why on some of the last episodes, because our defense is good enough that it's going to keep us in games. But can we score enough to win games? That's going to be the test. And in the fourth quarter, it was more of the same, Clipper Nation. 14 points. In the fourth. 14. We got outscored 24-14 in that quarter. End up losing the game 105-92. 14 points in the fourth quarter is terrible, especially in today's game. Why does that happen? Well, the obvious things are we go stagnant, the ball movement slows down when the refs start calling less, and it causes players to work harder for their shots, and it really shows which players are the elites of scoring the basketball, where guys separate themselves. We struggle, and there's a reason for that. We don't have our #1 option, our best player. And if you took away the best player on all these other teams that we're playing, that makes a huge difference. On opening night, we played against the Phoenix Suns. If you take away Kevin Durant, how different does that game look? Right? In both of those games, 2 of our losses, and right now we stand at 2-4 for the season. All those 4 losses coming at home, which sucks, especially considering we just opened up the Intuit Dome. If you took away 2 of those took Kevin Durant away from 2 of those, we're likely 4-2 instead. How about Golden State? Steph Curry actually ended up getting injured in that fourth quarter, but, actually, I was going to say imagine if you took him away for the whole game, but the Warriors without Steph Curry have been actually playing well, so I don't know. But, imagine if we played the Nuggets without Jokic. We beat them with Jokic. We would have beaten them easily without him. And, of course, this game with SGA. So the point being is that any team that loses their first option is going to be hampered significantly, and I don't want people to forget that, because we're almost viewing this team now, because Kawhi is such a non-factor in terms of our minds right now that this is the team with James Harden leading the way and whatever. And as I said before the season, and a lot of people wanted to push back and say it was because I don't like Harden and all this different stuff. No, it's because Harden as your best player at age 35 with this little of shot creators, you're essentially relying on a guy that was not in the league last year in KPJ to be your secondary creator. Emphasis on creator, because Norm, he's been unbelievable so far this season. Really unbelievable. But a lot of what he does, and even in this game, is attacking closeouts. And he's exceptional at it. Or that Norm curl. That Norm curl going from left to right is bread and butter for the Clippers. They've ran it since the second he got here. And he's fantastic at either turning that corner all the way for a layup, stopping and popping for a jumper, or just getting that three. It's a very solid, simple action. But in terms of creation, it's really KPJ, Harden, and now a little bit of Zubats who's being used more. We don't have much. You're asking James Harden at age 35 to do all this stuff, and you know the way he likes to play. It's a taxing style that he chooses to play of him being on the ball all the time because he doesn't like playing off the ball, and he's so good with the ball in his hands that he doesn't feel the need to really do much off the ball except for, I will say, he's been setting more screens this year, but it's obviously all in sets. It's not like spontaneously setting a screen, but it's all in sets. He's been doing a little bit more of that, but for the most part, he's stagnant on the wings. Sometimes he'll come from the wing to the top. My point being is that he plays a taxing style, right? And we kind of need him to do that because we don't have anything else. But that's my point, is that we don't have anything else. And the main reason for me that we blew this game is because the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, we had Norman and Harden on the bench together, and Zubats was the only guy besides KPJ that we could really ask to create a bucket, and both of them failed. Both of them failed in those moments. And in 5 minutes, we were down double digits, and by the time Harden and Norm came back in the game, they played about 3 minutes, and then Ty Lue waved the white flag with 4 minutes left when we were down 84-100. So I was very disappointed at that. And let me just say this about Ty Lue. I mentioned last game, or in the last episode, that we probably shouldn't have a total bench unit in, meaning every single player on the floor is a bench player, and we have Norm, Zoo, and Harden all out at once. I think that would be just not a good enough lineup for what we want to be, which is still a playoff team, and we don't have enough offense there. And this game, he adjusted a bit. He would leave one starter out there, whether it be Harden, because he plays the whole first quarter and the third quarter, and then Zoo, sometimes with 4 bench players, and then at times even Norman Powell with 4 bench players. And I have to say that beginning of the fourth quarter, where it was 4 bench players and Zoo, it puts the onus on Zoo, and he wasn't coming through. Kevin Porter Jr., he just doesn't do it for me. It's very stagnant when he gets the ball. He just looks to create his own shot almost every time, and his process takes so long. He's not very decisive with his moves. He has that step back he gets to, and it hasn't even been efficient. He has tunnel vision in the pick and roll. I mean, I think he can make some nice passes here and there, but he's not the best at making reads. The ball just tends to stick, and he doesn't see the open man quickly enough. And I get it. It's so hard. It's the NBA. James Harden, Chris Paul, these kind of pick and roll maestros of the world, they make it look so easy. But when you're actually watching a player that's not as good at making those pick and roll reads do it, you see that, yeah, they'll go over the screen with KPJ. They'll force him to try to get downhill, but he just doesn't make the best pass. And they are going under the screens, by the way, with Harden and KPJ a lot so far this season beyond the arc. Because Harden, I don't know what it is. I think it's just his little load-up shot takes a little second. It's not as quick of a release as, say, like your Norman Powells of the world. So teams feel as though the deep three, they can get a good contestant with Harden. KPJ is just not shooting well, so you know they're going to go under the screen there. But if you set a screen for James Harden just like right behind the three-point line, they're always going to go over, or they're playing with fire. My point being, though, is that the beginning of that fourth quarter, KPJ and Zubats weren't doing it, and they had to carry it. So moral of the story for me going forward, we have to have one of Norm or Harden in at all times until Kawhi's back. And am I going to blame Ty Lue entirely for this? No, because he didn't know it yet, and it's very easy for me to sit here and say it with hindsight. He made an adjustment by not going total bench, as if he was listening to the show, but Now we might see one of Harden or Norm in at all times because that stretch ruined the whole game. We lost the game in 5 minutes, which is very frustrating given that we had worked so hard defensively. We had stayed in the game. And it's very simple with this Clipper team what works. Our defense sets the tone. When we get stops, we're then able to get in transition. And I'm not just talking about turnovers and steals and open layups. I'm talking about missed shots. Now we get to push the pace. Either we have numbers and catch the defense before they recover, or they're cross-matched. So, when you're in transition defensively, you can't always make it back to your man and who you're guarding. You have to just talk and pick up the closest guy to you, which will allow situations like maybe an Isaiah Joe guarding Zoo or something like that, right? And by the way, the Thunder, they don't have Isaiah Hardenstein yet, so they're going small a lot in that second unit, and I thought we could have done a much better job of exploiting that with Zoo. But KPJ, he threw 2 passes, lob passes, straight from the top of the key over to Zoo, and those are just it's a very hard angle to make that pass accurately from the top of the key in a lob pass because you have to throw it high enough. When a player's getting fronted, you have to throw it high enough that it gets over the defender's hand and falls into the hands of your teammate, but you also can't throw it too far to where it either goes out of bounds or hits the rim. That's why you usually see those entry passes being thrown from the wing. For KPJ to do that, it's just his IQ is not very high, his basketball IQ. But and also, the careless turnovers that we continuously commit in the fourth quarter. It's like we forget how to play the game. Chris Dunn threw away the ball in the backcourt, I think twice in the game. One in the first half where he just could have taken more dribbles to escape out of the little pressure he was receiving by one guy, and he didn't. And Amir Coffey had his back turned, and we lost the ball, and Isaiah Joe hit a 3. Either Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins. I forget exactly who. I think it might have been Aaron Wiggins. And then we had that stupid turnover that actually made me lose my mind when we had a 3-on-1 fast break and Amir Coffey stopped running the lane and stopped and went to the 3-point line, backed it out on a fast break, and then didn't shoot the shot, threw it out to Zubats at half court, trailing the play, who got a backcourt violation. I mean, I can't stand the fast breaks in today's NBA. They literally just don't want layups. They want to go to the transition 3 and allow the defense to recover. Fine by me, not actually. So, moral of the story, we can't have Norman Harden out at the same time because these guys cannot score. And speaking of the guy that I thought was the most disappointing in this game, the man I've given the most props to on this show probably this season, if it's a Zubac, it's going to be talking about why I thought he was not good enough coming up. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude. And along with the person I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thinking of: ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Everybody says that everyone can use therapy. They're just not man enough or woman enough to admit that they need it. And BetterHelp is an opportunity for you to try. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so back talking about the Clippers' 105-92 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We are now 0-4 at the Intuit Dome, which is so devastating. And a lot of it has been the same story. The win that we needed to get was that Portland win. But again, it's just the going cold in fourth quarters, the careless turnovers. It's very disappointing. We've got to do a much better job taking care of the ball late in games. But a lot of it's just a lack of offensive talent. And when we have both Norm and Harden out of the game, the onus has to fall on KPJ and Zoo. Let's begin with Zoo, who I was the most disappointed with in this game. He just missed a lot of chippies, a lot of shots around the basket that he usually makes. And Chet Holmgren, I mean, he's not strong enough to guard Zoo. I saw him backing him down. He was shoving him back or throwing him back a bit. But the thing about Chet was, and a lot of NBA players are doing this, and I don't know how it doesn't get called for a foul, because I remember hearing that and seeing that 2 hands in the back to a post player was a foul. But nowadays, the game just favors small players now, which is ridiculous because basketball was a sport built on the shoulder of giants. But I saw Chet. He had the one-arm armbar, which is legal. And then as Zoo was backing him down, he would put his hands, like just throw his weight on Zubac's back with his hands. And it's just no foul. And just like, I don't know. I just feel as though that's a foul. It's just funny how much contact you're allowed down there. But out top, if James Harden gets his toes stepped on, then it's a foul. It's like, and Norman Powell gets one hand in the cookie jar, he sweeps up, it's just a foul. Like, it's wild to me. With that being said, no excuses. Zoo needed to be stronger, needed to finish better. But you know what? He's entitled to a bad game as well. It just so happens that we don't have that much margin for error, without Kawhi Leonard. So he wasn't making his jump hook. KPJ's not getting any good looks because just dilly-dallying, and we can't score. And the game was over right then and there. Zubac in this game had 9 points to go along with 12 rebounds, so he's still rebounding. 1 steal, 1 block, 1 turnover, but he was 4 for 10 from the field, and this is the worst thing of all. 1 for 5 from the foul line. Chris Dunn, by the way, 1 for 3 from the foul line. So Zubac's free throw shooting so far this season hasn't been very good. He's shooting 55% from the line, which would be a career low. So considering he's going to get fouled this year more than ever, and he's already averaging over 2 free throw attempts per game more than he's ever averaged with 5.2 per game, he's going to have to make his free throws. I mean, he shot 72% from the line last year, which is amazing for a guy his size, especially a guy that doesn't shoot jump shots. So he needs to get it back to at least 65. That'll help us because free throws have been a big reason we've lost games so far this season. But yeah, Zoo, he's still playing really well, but I thought he should have been a lot better. And when the Thunder went to that small lineup, we should have done a better job of feeding him every time. There are times we're still looking off of him and we're not getting good shots. Like, I don't get it. When you have a mismatch, and I know it's not popular to feed a big man in today's NBA, but our offense isn't good. We have to do it. And we can't throw entry passes from the top of the key like that over the top of the defense. Like, it's very risky. You know what I'm saying? Very risky. So, KPJ, by the way, I looked this up because it just feels like our offense is just not good when he's on the floor. And the first couple of games we were fine. We were able to basically break even with teams with KPJ on the floor. But it was mainly because our defense was so good. We put in Chris Dunn, we put in Nico Batum. These guys work super hard defensively and are good. Even Amir Coffey, solid defender. And I don't love this stat. An offensive rating for an individual, because I think your team's offensive rating is based on your team. It's not just you. Just because you're one guy on the court, it depends who else you're out there with. But I will say this, because I was just curious about it. Of the players, of every player on our team, and so far this season we've had 13 players suit up. It's the 10 guys in the rotation, and then Bones, Jordan Miller, and Kobe Brown. Of all those players, the guy with the highest, when our team has the highest offensive rating with him on the floor, is Norman Powell, which does not surprise me one bit. Second highest, James Harden. Does not surprise me one bit. Third, Derrick Jones Jr. Why is that? And by the way, he had a stinker as well, which was tough. But I think it's going to happen sometimes. Defensively, I thought he was not as great as normal. I think first half he was very good on SGA. There was one time, though, in the second half where I saw him get the corner turned on him so easily. And I was like, what? That's not Derrick Jones Jr. that I know. But he was awful offensively. And it was just mainly, not decision-making, but just couldn't make a shot. He's not a great shooter. And there was one time where he tried to beat the shot clock buzzer, and it was a good look at, an 18-footer. And he airballed so bad. I'm like, dude, guys, because I know catch and shoot mid-ranges aren't encouraged, and mid-ranges for role players aren't really encouraged. So I'm like, does every role player in the league they can't hit a mid-range? That was embarrassing. Derrick Jones Jr., 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 turnovers on 1 for 9 shooting and 0 for 5 from 3. So another thing about the Clippers, and we knew this going into the season, without Kawhi, we're not a good three-point shooting team. We've been a great three-point shooting team the last couple of years. In the 2-1-3 era, we were a very good three-point shooting team. And a lot of that, for those that want to not admit it, is because of Paul George. A lot of it was. but Kawhi as well. We don't have Kawhi. So I'm going to read you the percentages of our players right now. Oh, my bad. Before I do that, the offensive rating thing. 4th, Zoo, another starter. 5th, Terrence. So clearly our starting lineup is the best offensively. No shit. But anyway, Kevin Porter Jr. is only below Amir Coffey in the offensive rating department. And I think it's been very consistent to my eye test that it seems like our offense just stagnates massively. It's a lot of KPJ ball pounding. And I think part of that is because we've gone with these lineups with total bench or no Norm or Harden. So the onus is all on KPJ to create. But maybe it's only been 5 games. So maybe I'm being harsh. But I'm 6 games. I'm sorry. I keep thinking it's 5. I don't know why. It's only been 6 games. But so far, KPJ does not look like a guy that's a rotation player on a winning basketball team. He averaged 19 points on the most dysfunctional team ever. I want to repeat that again. He doesn't seem to get the most out of anyone. And I think we have heard him at times without putting Kai Jones out there. And by the way, how about that conversation? I thought Kai Jones came in the first half and was very lively. He caught a lob. He affected shots around the rim. And in the game, he was a +9. And again, single game plus minus, I'm not super high on either. +7, I'm sorry. But in those 10 minutes, I think he had a good impact. 4 points, 2 boards, an assist, and a block. And he didn't even play in the second half, if I recall correctly, until garbage time. So I don't really get that. We went to that small ball lineup again to match OKC, but I don't know why we go small against a team that thrives going small and has a better one-on-one player than us. So that was a little bit questionable for me. But yeah, I think we should use Kai Jones more, especially with KPJ, because it gives him a screener and roller. So that's my opinion on that. But yeah, Kai Jones came back in with 4 minutes left in the game when we were down 100 to 84. So essentially, he only played 6 minutes. And I think he could have gone more time. So, and I know what Ty was going for. He wanted to match small with small. He thought maybe they would play Kai off the floor. I don't know about that. But yeah, with Zubats having a stinker, and then James Harden, I haven't even spoken about James Harden, but he's not shooting well either. He was 4 for 13 and then 2 for 9 from 3. But I'll give Harden this. He's rebounding. 12 points, 13 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. And how about that? He did play pretty good defense. He got the corner turned on him a little easily at times, and some closeouts were lazy, and off the ball he gets lost sometimes. But overall, so far this season, especially given what he's doing offensively, I think he's been good enough defensively. I think he's been solid. His hands have been good. His rotations have been pretty solid. But in this game, we just needed more scoring. And if you're only going to get 12 from Harden and 9 from Zoo, you're not going to win. Especially against the Thunder. And no Kawhi, you're just not going to win. Norman Powell was the only one that showed up for scoring. And Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn had 11 points. Terrence Mann, actually, he started out the game really well. Finally made a 3. Hallelujah. And he had 11 points. But then in the second half, there were some moments where shot clock's winding down, and he didn't even shoot. He's got to shoot. 11 points for Terrence. I thought that was one of the better games, though, of the first 6. And I'm happy to see him hit a 3 because it might improve his confidence. Made all 6 of his free throws. But Norm, 24 points. He's been really carrying us so far, scoring the ball this season. 9 for 14 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 3 for 3 from the foul line. Keep it up, Norm. We see you, brother. But with Zoo having a stinker and Harden shooting poorly again, we're not going to win. It's OKC. It's that simple. But coming up, what changes can we make to make things better and get a win against San Antonio? Because if we don't win against them, oh my God, I don't know what to say. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So as far as the NFL, the favorites to go to the Super Bowl, of course, Kansas City with plus 420 odds, but that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know. It doesn't show MVP odds right now where I'm looking on FanDuel. But by the way, Rams just got a crazy win against the Seahawks on Sunday, and they're on a winning streak. So if you want to bet on the Rams, go for it. You'll get started. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so look, we're 0-4 at the Intuit Dome. It's very devastating. I just want to get a win in the new arena and hear that California love blasting. By the way, just another reminder, Dodgers won the World Series, if anybody forgot. Come on, I have to look for something to give me some happiness right now because this is tough. But the Intuit Dome is beautiful. However, before I ever talk about change, you know one thing we got to change? The parking prices. The stadium is not sold out. Let's look at the attendance, right? Because we should not be, listen, 16,827. The night before was even worse. Let's take a look at it. On Halloween, okay. Phoenix. Let's see what the attendance was in this one. 17,927. Okay, it says it was more. It didn't look like more. And then Portland. Let's see. Okay, it says it was a sellout. Oh, no, that was preseason. That was in Hawaii. Oh, I was reading it wrong. The first game, the Clippers. Damn, we didn't even sell out the first game. 17,927. So we didn't even sell out our opening night. We didn't sell out our opening night. Against Portland, we had 16,727. And then the recent one against Phoenix, that was the worst one of all, I think, 16,827. So we haven't had one sellout in the new arena. And I guarantee you it's not fully because Clipper fans aren't excited. It's because you are charging $50 to $70 for general parking. And plus, I tried to get a ticket last minute to the Suns game. $45, cheapest ticket in the building. And I know that doesn't sound like much for Laker games and stuff, but we don't have a LeBron or a Kobe or a 17-ring history. We don't have that. We're the more affordable option in the city, and we don't even have our best player. You should not be charging $45 minimum to get into the door. This team does not play fun enough basketball for that yet. But yeah, the capacity is 18,000 for the Intuit Dome, exactly as listed on Wikipedia. So while the first game felt like a sellout, there were empty seats in the upper level, but it felt like every seat was bought. But I guess we were 73 seats short of a sellout. So we'll see what our first sellout is. I guarantee you Wednesday might be the night. Paul George, I guarantee that might be. And apparently he's going to come back. But what changes can we make? So I already talked about one. Harden and Norm can't be out at the same time. But let's continue to talk about the three-point percentage, right? Because that's really something. Because we've been such a good three-point shooting team the last couple of seasons. Norman Powell is shooting 42% from three. Right? Chris Dunn is shooting 50% right now, which is amazing. It's not going to last, but it's amazing. And he's shooting 3 a game, so that's really good. Bones Hyland is shooting 50, but we can't talk about that because it's garbage time. Amir Coffey, who is so interesting because some games he's really good on both ends, and then other games he's just doing cardio out there, and he just seems like he's not sure of himself. And okay, this game on Saturday night was one of those games. He just seemed unsure of himself, made really weird decisions, was at fault for a couple of turnovers. But he's shooting 45.5% from three, which is really, really good. Norm, 42%. Derrick Jones Jr., even after that stinker, 38%. But then after those four, and I'm not including Bones Hyland, so it would be 5, but I'm not including him. So besides those four, Chris, Amir, Norm, and Derrick, everyone else is shooting under 30%. James Harden is shooting 27% from three, and he's taking 9 a game. So if James Harden's going to be this inefficient, we're not going to win anything without Kawhi. And I don't totally blame him because he has to carry a lot of weight. But this just tells all the people that are Harden fangirls and cannot put 2 and 2 together that, look, he's not what he once was, and that's okay at age 35. Because back in the day, he used to carry these kinds of loads, average 35, and still be pretty efficient. He just can't do it anymore. Do I think his efficiency is going to increase? Of course. Of course it's going to increase. His three-point shooting is going to improve. Or not improve. His percentage is going to improve because he's such a great shooter. But it's also because of what he's having to do. He has the best defender on him at all times. He's older. I mean, he has to work so hard for his shots compared to normal. Like last season, he was dealing with the 3rd best defender most nights. So it was so different for him. Even in the playoffs with Paul George, he had the 2nd defensive option. He had Kyrie Irving guarding him. As opposed to now, he's getting the best player defensively every night. So, and he has to carry such a big weight. But we got to need him to shoot better than this, especially from 3, or else 9 threes is a lot. Like, it's just, we're going to need him to shoot better. It's that simple. Nico, 27%. He can shoot better, and I think he will, but it's not been good enough so far. Terrence Mann, 10%. Awful there. And then KPJ, 12%, and he's shooting 3 a game. Like, the fact of the matter is, our main 2 shot creators right now, KPJ and James Harden, are shooting 36% from the field and 34.5% respectively. And then from 3, 27% and 12%. So that's going to be hard to win. So my first change, you can't take Norman Harden out at the same time. 2, Kevin Porter Jr., stop throwing entry passes from the top like that. 3, can we just, honestly, can we sit Kevin Porter Jr. and try Bones Hyland? Can we just try and see if it's better? Because Bones Hyland has sat on the bench and waited his turn. Why does this guy, because he averaged 19 points in Houston, get to come in and just take over? He's bigger. I get it. Let's give Bones a chance. And then if you don't want to give Bones and KPJ a chance, you take both of them out of the rotation. Or Bones is already out of the rotation. So you take Kevin out, put Jordan Miller in, because everybody wants to see him, and have Chris Dunn, Jordan Miller, Nico Batum, Kai Jones, and Amir Coffey come off the bench. But don't play them all at once. See, what Ty is probably afraid of is Jordan Miller, he's not ready to create. Is he ready to create his own shot at the NBA level against, real comp? I don't know. And I know Ty's definitely questioning that as well. Do I think it's worth a shot? Sure, but people have to understand that want Jordan Miller to play, because I do as well. If you take out a KPJ or Bones Hyland, Harden is literally the only guy that's a good pick and roll player. And today's NBA is based off of pick and roll. So our offensive struggles may be more of a thing. It's tough. Moral of the story, if you want to take an overlying take off this whole thing, it's going to be hard to score points without Kawhi. That's it. But OKC's better than us even with Kawhi, I think. This next game, though. San Antonio on Monday night. Man, if we don't win that, I don't even know what to say. Wemby. CP3 back. It's going to be crazy to see Chris Paul in a Spurs jersey because I haven't watched any of their games in full. But I just want to say to everybody that's at the game, because I know some people listen to this that actually go to games. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to suggest it. Chris Paul is going to retire any year now, I should say. Before he retires and we see him eventually for his number retirement ceremony at the Intuit Dome, which I think will for sure happen. It has to. Let's give him some appreciation. Let's applaud for him. Now that we have a section of diehard fans like The Wall, I'm going to try my best. If you hear any beat writers or someone post a tweet that Chris Paul got an applause, I'm going to try my best to make sure I have something to do with that, because people have booed him, especially with the Phoenix stuff, but he totally deserves some appreciation from us, especially with what Paul George did and how rough Kawhi's tenure has been. Chris Paul embraced every part of being the leader of this franchise. And for that, and it's not like he didn't produce on the court. He literally gave us our most fun years. Without him, it wouldn't have been possible. So, yeah, he has his flaws. He can be a diva. He flops. But he really loved it here. He embraced being a Clipper as much as anyone. I remember when we win playoff games on the road, he would say after the game, Clipper Nation, we're going to need you to be loud. And that made a kid like me feel important. So I hope we can give him an applause, especially because he's on a non-threatening team. But we got to beat that non-threatening team, or else I don't even know what I want to sound like. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDrummerPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Drummer, where by the time you listen to this, I should have a vlog out of the game. You can check out what people were saying, my view from the wall, and, of course, me asking fans' thoughts about the OKC trade and how it's aged, because it's rough seeing them play this well and be this good. And, of course, Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you can listen on audio anytime you can't watch on YouTube. And, of course, on YouTube, hit the notification bell. And so, every single time we post a video. And, of course, subscribe. Let's get up to 7,000. Because Clipper Nation, one thing about us is as a fan base, we're slept on and we can make some more noise than people think. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.